I used to be the woman they laughed at. They called my business a joke, my live streams embarrassing, and my dreams unrealistic. While they launched fashion lines with investor money, I was selling clothes from my living room, alone, unseen, and underestimated. But I held on to one thing they never understood: purpose. And that purpose? It changed everything. Let me tell you how it all began. My name is Lauren Hartley, and for most of my life, I've been the kind of woman people overlook until they need something. I didn't come from money, I didn't go to an Ivy League school, and I certainly didn't have any fancy titles next to my name. But I had grit and heart. And maybe more importantly, I had an eye for clothes, for people, for stories told through fabric. It started small. One night, sitting on my worn-out sofa after a long shift at the insurance office, I went live on a resale app. Just to try it. I had a few pre-loved blouses I picked up at a thrift store, washed, steamed, and hung neatly on a borrowed rack. I turned on the ring light, a $20 steal from a clearance bin, faced my cracked camera lens and said, "All right, ladies, let's talk real clothes for real bodies." To my surprise, 5 people tuned in. And 2 actually bought something. That night, something clicked. Live stream selling wasn't glamorous. My studio was a corner of my 1-bedroom apartment in Cincinnati, wedged between my washer and a chip Formica counter. I had no team, no photographer, no marketing plan. Just a hope that maybe, just maybe, there were other women out there tired of being ignored by fashion that either cost a fortune or fit like it was made for a teenager. Every night after work, I'd change out of my slacks, pull my hair into a bun, and turn on the light. I'd hold up wrap dresses and say, "This one hides the tummy, trust me, I've got one." I'd try on stretchy pants and say, "You can bend down and pick up your grandkid in these, no lie." My style wasn't polished, but it was real. And to the women who tuned in night after night, that mattered. But to the people around me? Not so much. My old college circle had gone corporate. PR firms, marketing agencies, startup ventures, you know the type. Glossy LinkedIn profiles and group brunches with hashtags. They'd invite me sometimes, mostly to fill a seat. One night, I mentioned my live stream hustle over margaritas, thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd be curious. Emma smirked over her rim. "So you're what, like an online QVC now?" Jess laughed. "Influencer vibes." "I love it." Another chimed in, "You really should invest in better lighting. Your video looked cozy." Cozy. That was their word for pathetic. I smiled politely, even joked along. But when I got home, I cried in the shower. Not because they insulted me, but because I let their words sink in. I let them make me feel like I was less than. Like my effort was a hobby at best, a joke at worst. It hurt more when I found out a few months later that those same women had launched a fashion brand, sleek, curated, minimalist. They'd raised money, hired a branding firm, and launched a line targeting modern women over 40. Women like me. Like my viewers. But there was no invitation. Not for feedback. Not for partnership. Not even a "hey, we see what you're doing." They didn't take me seriously. To them, I was just playing business in my living room. A woman with hangers and hustle, but no pedigree. I nearly quit. More than once. When orders were slow. When tech glitched midstream. When my back hurt from standing too long or my voice cracked from talking alone into a screen. But then I'd get messages. A woman from Kansas City wrote, "I haven't worn jeans in years, but the pair you showed actually fit." And I felt, like me again. A retired nurse from Georgia said, "You're the only person who doesn't make me feel invisible." And that reminded me, I wasn't doing this for applause. I was doing it because no one had ever made space for women like us in fashion. The overlooked. The in-between. The ones with stories written in laugh lines and stretch marks in silver strands we refused to dye anymore. My mom used to say, "Let them laugh. You'll be too busy building." She passed before she ever saw my first big month. But I hold her words close, like a thread sewn into everything I create. I didn't know what was coming. That one day, those same women would find themselves in a boardroom, pitches rehearsed, pride wounded, and I'd be sitting across from them, not as the girl they used to pity, but as the woman they now needed. But I do know this. Every late night I packed orders by hand, every awkward live stream where I stumbled over my words, every laugh I swallowed from people who thought they knew better. It all built something. Not just a business, but a backbone. And I was just getting started. It happened on a Thursday night. I remember because I was wearing my lucky cardigan, the one with soft oatmeal yarn and a frayed cuff that always made me feel warm and confident on stream. Sales had been slow that week, but I had a new haul of plus-size summer dresses I was genuinely excited about. Bright florals, flowy cuts, pieces that hugged and draped in all the right places. I went live at 8 p.m. sharp. My little community trickled in, Linda from Ohio, Jen from Texas, a few others. I greeted them like old friends. That night, I did something a little different. I modeled the dresses myself. Usually I held them up on hangers or used the adjustable mannequin I got at a garage sale. But this time I stood back from the camera, turned sideways, even twirled once or twice, laughing nervously as I showed how the fabric moved. I remember saying, "It's okay to take up space, ladies. Fashion isn't just for size 2s. My regulars were kind. They cheered me on. "Looking good, Lauren. Love that color on you." But there were a few new usernames that I didn't recognize. They didn't say much, just lurked. I ended the stream around 9:15, tired but content. I sold 3 dresses and 5 tops. Modest numbers, but for me it was a win. The next morning I woke up to a text from my cousin Shelby. "Are you okay? You're trending." But not in a good way. My stomach dropped. I clicked the link she sent, and there it was, a TikTok video that someone had clipped from my live stream. Edited. Mocked. Ruined. They'd added clown music over my voice. Slapped text on the screen that read, "When your dreams cost less than your dinner." Paused right on a frame where I was mid-spin, caught in an awkward pose with my mouth open and arms up like a game show host. The comments were brutal. Who let their aunt on live stream? This is why boomers shouldn't be online. Give it up, girl. No one wants polyester that bad. It had 300,000 views in just 10 hours. By noon it was on Twitter. Then Instagram. Even Facebook, where some people from high school shared it with laughing emojis. People I hadn't spoken to in 20 years were suddenly reposting my humiliation like it was the punchline of their afternoon scroll. I couldn't breathe. I locked myself in the bathroom and sobbed until my throat went raw. I didn't cry because strangers were cruel. I cried because I felt exposed. Violated. I had opened myself up, taken a risk, and the world had turned it into a joke. What made it worse? Emma and Jess, my former friends, had liked the video. Publicly. Jess even commented, "This is why branding matters." Yikes. I stayed off my phone for the rest of the day. Ignored texts. Let calls go to voicemail. I couldn't even look at my ring light without feeling sick. By evening, I was pacing my living room. Angry. Humiliated. Exhausted. Part of me wanted to disappear. Shut it all down. Sell the inventory and go back to being invisible. But then, I thought about Sharon. She was one of my regulars, early 60s, retired teacher, lived in Idaho. She'd once messaged me after a stream and said, "Lauren, you make me feel like I matter. My husband passed 5 years ago, and for the first time since, I feel excited to get dressed again." I thought about her. About all the women who had messaged me quietly, privately. The ones who'd said, "Thank you for showing clothes that actually fit me," or "You made me feel seen." And I realized something. The people laughing? They didn't know me. They didn't know the women I was serving. They weren't there the night I stayed up till 3 a.m. packing orders by hand because I couldn't afford help. They didn't see the spreadsheet taped to my wall or the broken nail from tearing packing tape too fast. They didn't know my why. So I did the only thing that made sense. I turned the camera back on. No makeup. No filters. No apology. Just me in the same oatmeal cardigan, eyes puffy from crying, voice steady but low. I saw the video, I said. And I want to say something not just to the people laughing, but to the women watching who feel like they're not enough. You are. I paused, took a breath, and let the tears sit where they were. I'm not ashamed of what I do. I help real women find clothes that feel good on real bodies. I'm not here to impress the internet. I'm here to build something. Something honest, something kind. That live stream, it went viral too. But for a very different reason. The comments were filled with support. Thousands of them. You're a warrior. Thank you for being real. Following forever. I went to bed that night exhausted, but at peace. They tried to make me a joke. Instead, they gave me a spotlight. And I was just getting warmed up. After the viral video, I thought I might fall apart. Instead, I began to fall into place. That weekend, I stayed off social media. No live streams. No planning. Just long walks, black coffee, and journaling in silence. I needed space to hear myself think, really think. And in that quiet, I asked myself the hardest question of all. If no one else was watching, would you still do this? And the answer came gently but firmly, yes. Because this business, this humble little livestream side hustle, was the first thing in years that felt like mine. I wasn't clocking in for a boss who ignored me. I wasn't trying to be who my friends expected. I was building something even if no one else saw it. By Monday I had a plan. I posted a new video, not live this time, just me talking directly into the camera. Hi everyone. If you're new here because of the video, welcome. You saw one moment, but let me show you what I've really been doing. Then I showed behind-the-scenes clips. My apartment turned warehouse. Me folding clothes, printing labels, organizing racks by size. I showed thank you notes I'd received, photos customers had sent wearing the items they bought. Real women. Real stories. Real impact. It wasn't polished. It was honest. And it took off. Thousands of shares. Tens of thousands of likes. And most important of all, orders. Real ones. In 2 weeks, my little Shopify site crossed 10,000 visitors. My inbox flooded with messages from women across the country. I just found you because of that TikTok. Thank God I did. Your clothes are the first things I've worn in years that didn't make me feel invisible. I'm 62, short and curvy. Your shop made me feel like fashion hadn't given up on me. I had no warehouse. No employees. I shipped everything from my living room floor. But I knew I needed help and I needed to scale. So I reached out to a few local seamstresses I'd met at craft fairs and flea markets. 2 said yes. One, Lisa, had worked in a factory before it closed. The other, Irene, was a 68-year-old grandma who had never sewn for a business but had made prom dresses for 5 granddaughters. We started meeting in the evenings, fabric spread across my dining table. And together we started designing. I told them what my customers had told me. We want sleeves that don't strangle, waistbands that don't punish, and we want to feel beautiful, not ashamed. We sourced affordable, soft, forgiving fabrics. I tested each prototype on stream. This one's great for Thanksgiving dinner, I'd say. It moves with you, not against you. And the audience grew. From 50 watchers to 500. Then thousands. I renamed the brand Second Wind. Because that's what it gave me. A second chance. A deeper breath. A reminder that life didn't stop at 40, 50, or 60. It evolved. I invested in professional labels, upgraded my shipping supplies, and brought on my niece to manage customer emails. Every dollar I made went right back into the business. I didn't buy a new car. I didn't move to a bigger place. I stayed rooted. Meanwhile, I started noticing something interesting. The fashion startup that Emma, Jess, and a few of our former classmates had launched, it wasn't taking off the way they expected. Sure, they had sleek branding, influencers wearing their clothes, and a huge initial marketing push. But the reviews? Brutal. Sizes run small. Customer service is cold. Feels like it was made for Instagram, not real life. They had investors, sure. But they didn't have a community. I did. My customers didn't just buy, they believed. They told their sisters, coworkers, friends. Women started hosting second wind parties. Livestream watch events in living rooms with wine and snacks. They'd message me pictures of 5 women all holding up dresses, laughing, feeling beautiful again. I still remember the night we sold out of our first full collection. I cried. Ugly cried. I FaceTimed Irene and Lisa and we screamed like schoolgirls. We toasted with Diet Coke and homemade cookies. That moment was more than a sales milestone, it was validation. That we were on the right path. That kindness and authenticity could win. Even in a world full of curated perfection and cold algorithms. But the story didn't stop there. I started offering mentorship sessions, free ones, for women trying to start their own online shops or streams. I held weekly shop talk nights on Zoom where sellers could ask questions, troubleshoot tech, or just vent. Some were in their 30s. Some in their 60s. One was 78 and selling hand-knit shawls from her retirement home. I feel alive again, she said. Like I matter. And that was it. That was the heartbeat of all of this. They tried to humiliate me. They turned me into a meme. But their cruelty gave me reach, and their laughter gave me fuel. One woman's insult became 1,000 women's inspiration. The brand that started on a folding table was now outgrowing my apartment. We signed a lease on a small studio downtown. Lisa and Irene became full-time partners. We hired a fulfillment assistant, Sandra, A single mom who cried when she got her first paycheck. And I never forgot where I came from. Every first Friday we ran a pay-what-you-can event for women in need. No questions asked. Just enter the code and pick one item on us. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't need approval to build a life you believe in. You need courage. And a little bit of quiet defiance. They mocked my livestream hustle. But I turned it into a movement. You know how some people believe life comes full circle? I didn't. Not until the day I saw the name Maison Rive in an email titled, Strategic Brand Acquisition Opportunity. First I thought it was a mistake. A joke even. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Then I opened the file. And there it was, the brand Emma and Jess had built. The one they'd launched with high-profile influencers, slick branding, and exclusive events I was never invited to. The one they told me was a real business. Unlike my little livestream side project. According to the document, they were actively seeking acquisition. Not investment, acquisition. I sat back in my chair, heart steady. Not racing. Not bitter. Just focused. Because that was the moment I realized they were drowning. Sales were down. Their flagship store had closed. Reviews were mixed at best. They'd gone too niche, too exclusive. They built a brand for an audience that didn't stick around. And worse, they had no fallback. No relationship with their customers. No community. Just glossy photos and increasingly empty PR. Meanwhile, Second Wind had grown beyond anything I imagined. We weren't just selling clothes, we were starting conversations. We were filling a gap no one else bothered to see. Real fashion for real women who wanted comfort, style, and dignity, without being priced out. We just opened our third fulfillment space in the Midwest. Our team had grown to 15. Orders came in faster than we could package them. But I never forgot what started it all. Being laughed at, mocked, humiliated by the same people now seeking a lifeline. And so I said yes. Yes to the meeting. Yes to the pitch. But more than that, I said yes to the full circle moment I never thought I'd live to see. The pitch was held at a sleek office tower in downtown Chicago. Floor-to-ceiling windows, brushed steel accents, bottled water with embossed labels. It was everything they always valued. Polish over purpose. I walked in with a folder, my tablet, and a quiet sense of calm. They didn't know I'd be there. The invite listed representatives from prospective investors. I was just another name on the guest list. Emma entered first, in a structured gray pantsuit and heels too high for a day like this. Jess followed, tablet in hand, scanning the room before landing on me. I watched the recognition flicker across her face like a spark. Her lips parted, then quickly pressed together. Emma's eyes widened, but she blinked it away and turned to the screen. We're excited to share how Maison Rive is evolving, she began. I sat through the presentation, quiet and patient. They tried to dress the numbers up with branding terms. Market recalibration, influencer fatigue, evolving consumer preferences. But underneath the buzzwords, the truth was obvious. Maison Rive was bleeding. Their audience had moved on. Customer retention was abysmal. Inventory wasn't turning. They had too much overhead and no clear mission anymore. Just empty runway looks and dwindling capital. When they reached the strategic investment opportunities slide, the room turned toward the table of investors. One of the consultants nodded at me. I stood, walked to the screen, and gently took the remote. Thank you, Emma. Jess, I said. Now I'd like to offer a perspective from the other side of the market. Click. A slide appeared showing Second Wind's year-over-year growth, including real customer quotes. Finally, clothes that fit my life. Thank you for thinking of women like me. It's not just fashion, it's freedom. Click. Another side-by-side. Their ad campaign with a 22-year-old model in stilettos versus ours with a 59-year-old woman smiling barefoot in her backyard. Our customer, I said, isn't asking for fantasy. She's asking for representation. Maison Rive missed her. We saw her. The room stayed quiet. I glanced at Jess. Her confidence was cracking. Emma spoke. Lauren, we appreciate your feedback, but nothing, I said gently. You built a brand that alienated the very women who needed you. You had the resources, the attention, the platform. What you didn't have was empathy. And that's why I'm here. Click. Final slide, Second Wind Group, formal offer to acquire controlling interest in Maison Rive. Emma's mouth parted. Jess let out a slow exhale. I'm offering to buy 70% of the company, I continued. We'll maintain existing staff, reassess inventory, reposition the brand under our ethical and inclusive model. I'll give your business a second chance, but under a new purpose. They were stunned, and I didn't blame them. The last time they saw me, I was folding thrift store blouses on a live stream they turned into a meme. Now I was making them an offer they couldn't refuse. Jess tried to object. It's a hostile takeover, Lauren. I smiled. No. A hostile takeover happens in secret. This is a transparent rescue. Emma leaned forward, her voice quiet. You were never supposed to be the one sitting across from us. No, I said. But I am. We spent the next hour going through terms. I made it clear this wasn't about revenge. It was about building something lasting, ethical, useful. I had no interest in gloating. I didn't want their apology. I didn't need their approval. I wanted to lead. And they, after months of sinking, finally recognized it. When I left the room, I walked past the receptionist and caught a glimpse of myself in the glass wall. I didn't look smug or triumphant. I looked like a woman who had weathered every storm and now stood in the sun. I looked like someone who'd stopped asking for a seat at the table and built her own. I've never liked boardrooms. They always felt too cold, too calculated. Long tables with sharp corners, uncomfortable chairs dressed up to look executive, and walls made of glass that let everyone see in, but never truly see you. But that morning, I owned the room before I even stepped into it. It had been 2 weeks since my team and I reviewed the full financial portfolio of Maison Rive. The numbers confirmed what I already sensed. Their brand was hemorrhaging money, struggling with identity, and losing relevance fast. But behind those numbers, I saw something else: possibility. A wounded structure with good bones. And the chance to turn something built on exclusion into something rooted in truth. I arrived early, as I always do. Not out of habit, but out of respect. Respect for the moment. Respect for the woman I used to be, the one who'd stayed up late ironing thrifted dresses under a flickering light bulb, praying for 2 more sales to make rent. Back then, I would have walked into a room like this feeling like an outsider. Today, I walked in as the one with leverage. The table was already set with branded folders, printed pitch decks, and mineral water. I took the seat at the far end, the one nearest the screen. I didn't need to be at the head, I didn't need symbolism. I had strategy. And in business, that speaks louder than seating charts. They arrived 6 minutes late. Emma led the group, dressed sharply in tailored beige, every movement rehearsed. Jess followed, tapping away at her phone before offering a clipped nod in my direction. They didn't recognize me at first, not really. Maybe the suit threw them off. Maybe they didn't expect to see me here, of all places. They settled in, and the pitch began. Slide after slide of market data, influencer metrics, projections, branding potential. They spoke like consultants, polished, vague, and full of borrowed buzzwords. Our brand is poised for resurgence, Emma said with a smile. With the right partner, Maison Rive can return to its original vision of elevated, aspirational fashion for the modern woman. I waited until they reached the slide titled Strategic Investment Pathways. Then I stood, walked slowly to the screen, and gently, quietly, took the clicker from Jess's hand. Thank you, I said. Now if you'll allow me, I'd like to offer a different kind of perspective. One you haven't seen before. I clicked once. A graph appeared, Second Wind's 3-year growth chart. Real numbers. Real engagement. Real customer retention. It didn't glitter, but it spoke. Click. Side-by-side imagery. Their ad campaign. Thin, expressionless models posed like mannequins. Ours. Women of all ages laughing, stretching, walking dogs, picking tomatoes from a backyard garden. Click. A customer quote. Maison Rive made me feel invisible. Second Wind made me feel seen. That's when Emma finally realized. She leaned forward, blinking slowly, voice careful. I'm sorry, Lauren? I turned to face her fully. Yes. Lauren Hartley, founder and CEO of Second Wind Group. Silence. Jess's expression tightened. She looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Emma's face remained composed, but her eyes told the truth. I'm here, I continued, not as a potential investor, but as your buyer. I clicked again, this time revealing a clean, formal document. Acquisition proposal, Second Wind Group to Maison Rive. Effective immediately, I said, I'm offering to acquire 70% of your company. Full operational control. A structured phase-out of current executive decision-making. And a rebrand focused on purpose over polish. If this moment caught you by surprise, go ahead and click the like button. It helps more people find stories like this. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. You won't want to miss how this story unfolds. You could have heard a pin drop. Emma opened her mouth. Lauren, this feels abrupt. I tilted my head. Not at all. You've been bleeding money for 9 months. Your top influencers jumped ship. And you're pitching to investors with shrinking margins and rising returns. This isn't abrupt. This is late. Jess chimed in, defensive. You're trying to gut the brand we built. No, I said, voice steady. I'm trying to save it, from itself. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to twist the knife. I simply stood in the truth they had ignored, that women like me, like our customers, were never just a niche. We were the majority. The backbone. And we were done being invisible. Emma looked down at the table. You're doing this for payback. I paused. I'm doing this, I said softly, because I know what it's like to be mocked, excluded, underestimated. And I also know what it means to build something with your own hands. I won't let this brand die, but I also won't let it keep pretending it's doing something meaningful when it's not. The facilitator stepped in and asked if we needed time to review the proposal. Jess nodded stiffly. Emma just sat there, staring at her manicured hands like she didn't recognize them anymore. I returned to my seat. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I simply breathed. Because this moment wasn't about vengeance, it was about power reclaimed the right way. With dignity. With intention. Without bitterness. The meeting ended with a follow-up scheduled to finalize legal terms. As I gathered my materials, Emma stood and approached me. Quietly she asked, why now? I looked at her, not with malice, not with triumph, but with clarity. Because now you're listening. That night, I walked out of the building alone. The air was cool, the city buzzing with afterwork chatter. I stopped on the sidewalk, tilted my face toward the early evening sky, and let out a slow breath. I thought about the woman I used to be, ring light flickering, knee sore from crouching over folded orders, heartbreaking from one cruel comment too many. And then I thought about this moment. Not revenge. Redemption. They had the head start. The funding. The spotlight. But I had the follow-through. The heart. The why. And now I had the future. I signed the deal on a Friday afternoon. No fanfare. No champagne. Just a quiet signature on a stack of papers that changed everything. The office was still. A soft spring breeze pushed through the open window. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang out the hour as if the world needed to acknowledge the moment, even if no one else could see it. I signed Lauren Hartley, CEO, Second Wind Group. And just like that, I officially became the majority owner of the very company that once refused to acknowledge me as a peer. Maison Rive was now mine. I didn't throw a party. I didn't post a triumphant video or blast an announcement across social media. That wasn't my style. Instead, I spent that evening with Lisa and Irene, my seamstresses, my sisters in the trenches. We sat in my kitchen, the same one where I once packed orders by hand. We ate chicken pot pie, poured coffee into mismatched mugs, and talked about what came next. I want this to mean something, I told them. Lisa nodded. It already does. But I meant something more. I didn't just want to own Maison Rive, I wanted to redeem it. On Monday, I gathered their team, designers, operations managers, customer service reps, and held a town hall meeting in their Chicago headquarters. Some looked nervous. Others looked skeptical. A few I could tell were just tired. I stepped in front of them, took a breath and said, you may not know me well. But I know you. I've been where you are packing boxes at 2 a.m., answering angry emails from people you'll never meet. I know what it feels like to pour your effort into something and not be seen. Silence. I'm not here to fire anyone, I continued. I'm here to fix what's broken. To turn this brand into something that actually serves people, not just sells to them. And if you're with me, we're going to build something better than any of us imagined. They clapped. Some hesitantly. Some with relief. And one woman, Sarah, in customer service, actually cried. Later, she pulled me aside and said, I've worked here 3 years. You're the first leader who's ever spoken like we matter. That stuck with me. Over the next few months, we rolled up our sleeves. First came the pricing restructure. Maison Rive had positioned itself as attainable luxury, but the prices were exclusionary. We slashed retail by 40%, cut margins just enough to maintain quality while respecting the customer's wallet, and eliminated markups that served ego, not value. Next came sizing. We launched an initiative called Fit for Real Life and expanded our range to include sizes 0 to 30, with adjusted proportions that accounted for height, bust shape, and body diversity. I hired a fit model in her 60s, another who used a cane, and a third who was post-mastectomy. We asked them what worked and what didn't. And we listened. Marketing got an overhaul too. No more beige silence. We introduced bold, joyful campaigns. Women laughing with grandkids, walking dogs, tending gardens, dancing barefoot in their kitchens. The tagline? Wear what moves you. And it wasn't just about clothes. We changed the culture. We implemented paid family leave. We raised hourly wages. We gave every employee a voice in quarterly feedback sessions. I instituted a weekly email called the Friday Fold, where one employee was highlighted, not for performance metrics, but for character, kindness, or creativity. A pattern cutter named Monica once got spotlighted for baking birthday muffins for the whole warehouse. That email thread had more replies than any policy memo I ever sent. We also launched the Second Start program, a partnership with local shelters and women's support centers to provide mentorship, training, and part-time work for women rebuilding their lives after hardship. Domestic violence survivors. Former caregivers. Older women pushed out of the workforce. One of the first hires was Maria, 56, who'd been unemployed for 4 years after caring for her father with Alzheimer's. She cried during her interview, certain we'd reject her. 2 months in, she became our lead in inventory. Quiet, precise, and fiercely loyal. This job gave me back my dignity, she whispered to me one day. And that was the real win. As for Emma and Jess, they remained as consultants for 6 months during the transition. To their credit, they showed up. Humbled. Hesitant. Occasionally helpful. We didn't pretend to be friends. We didn't need to be. I treated them with respect, held firm boundaries, and made sure they understood this wasn't about payback. It was about purpose. One afternoon, as Emma was gathering her things, she lingered in my office doorway. You built something real, she said. I didn't see it back then. I should have. I gave a small nod. We all see things when we're ready. She looked down at the floor. I was cruel to you. I know that. I didn't smile. I didn't absolve. I just said you underestimated me. But more than that, you underestimated the people I serve. She nodded once and left. The past didn't need to be rewritten. Just closed. And in that closure, I found peace. 6 months after the acquisition, we held a brand relaunch event in a modest space, not a ballroom, not a rooftop, just a community center in Milwaukee where we'd opened a new warehouse. Customers came. Partners came. Women who had never felt welcome in a fashion space stood up, walked the room in our clothes, and were met with applause, not critique. I looked around that day at the laughter, the warmth, the fullness of it all, and thought, this is what fashion should feel like. Like home. Like freedom. Like finally being seen. They laughed at my live stream hustle. But now, they wear my labels. They stand on my team. And every time payroll runs, I sign their checks. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted a better way. And I built it. 6 months after the deal closed, things looked different. Not just on paper, though. Yes, Maison Rive was officially under the Second Wind Group and showing profitability for the first time in over a year, but in spirit. In heart. The office no longer felt like a museum. The sterile white walls had been replaced with warm tones and personal touches. Family photos. Sticky notes with doodles. Shelves with potted plants that employees brought from home. Laughter echoed in break rooms. Customer service agents didn't sound robotic. They sounded like people. Because they were. That was the new normal. Maison Rive still existed, technically, but only as a name under the broader umbrella. We'd restructured everything: pricing, sizing, fabrics, messaging. Gone were the days of chasing influencers or catering to stylists who only cared about how something looked under a ring light. We created clothes people could live in. Host book clubs in. Run errands in. Attend church in. Stretch, hug, dance, rest in. But beyond the numbers and logistics, I knew what mattered most: passing the ladder back down. So I did something bold. Something no one expected. I started funding other women. Not just with words, but with real money. Real time. It began with a live stream from my original audience. I told them about the Lift Her Fund, a small grant program for women over 40 starting their own small businesses, especially those in fashion, crafting, or service-based industries. I told them I'd offer mentorship, supplies, even a dedicated space on our platform to sell or promote their work. The applications flooded in. Not from polished entrepreneurs with 5-year plans, but from women like me. Women who had lived entire lives putting others first and were finally asking, what if I tried for myself? I met Deborah, a 63-year-old widow from Tulsa who hand-sewed aprons from upcycled fabric. I met Aisha, a former mail carrier from Detroit who wanted to launch a line of orthopedic-friendly shoes that didn't look like nurse clogs. I met Yvonne, a retired teacher who had a side hustle making soy candles and needed help getting her Shopify store off the ground. Each woman had a spark in her eyes. Not the fire of youth, but the glow of rediscovery. That beautiful moment when you realized the world had tried to write your final chapter, but you still had pages left. And I made sure those pages got published. We hosted pop-up events across the country where Second Wind shared space with Lyft her partners. We launched a quarterly digital catalog. We created content not just around our clothes but their stories, their triumphs, their comeback arcs. And people showed up. Not just customers but community. Because something happens when you stop chasing clout and start chasing connection. The business flourished, but so did I. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving or proving people wrong. I was actively building something bigger than me. Something generational. Something legacy-worthy. And yes, there were challenges. Logistics hiccups. Supplier issues. The occasional ego clash from someone who underestimated me before and still hadn't quite swallowed that I was now their boss. But the difference now? I wasn't alone. I had a team who believed in the mission. I had customers who trusted our direction. I had mentors who reminded me daily why the work mattered. And every so often I'd live stream from my original living room setup, just to stay grounded. Same old corner. Same frayed rug. Just me holding up a soft floral blouse saying, "This one's for the woman who raised kids, buried parents, worked jobs she hated, and still managed to show up. You deserve to feel beautiful. Right now. Just as you are." Thousands of women tuned in. Commented. Bought the blouse. Tagged their daughters. Sent messages like, "Thank you for not forgetting us. Fashion stopped speaking to me years ago. You helped me hear it again." And one that I'll never forget. I'm 74. This is the first time I've ever felt seen by a clothing brand. It hit me then, this wasn't just about selling clothes. This was about rewriting the rules. And for the first time in a long time I felt full. Not because I'd won something, but because I'd given something that mattered. A roadmap. A hand up. A voice that echoed long after the live stream ended. This was my new normal. And it was everything I never knew I needed. Sometimes I lie awake at night, not out of worry but out of wonder. I'll stare at the ceiling of my quiet home and think about that first night I went live. The chipped mug I used to hold makeup brushes. The sound of the radiator humming in the background. The ring light that flickered when the microwave was running. I remember how nervous I was. How small I felt. I also remember how I kept going. I didn't know then what the road would look like. I didn't know I'd one day sit across a boardroom from people who once laughed at me. I didn't know I'd own their company. That I'd reimagine it. That I'd rebuild it. That I'd grow both of us into something neither of us had the vision or humility to imagine back then. But here I am. People often ask me now, what was the moment? The turning point. And I always smile because there wasn't one moment. It wasn't the viral video or the first $1,000 sales day or the signed contract. It was the hundreds of small decisions when no one was watching. The ones where I could have quit but didn't. The moments I chose truth over ego. Service over pride. Substance over appearance. And that's what made all the difference. I didn't build Second Wind to be flashy. I built it to be true. And now? That truth lives on in more than just dresses and denim. It lives in the women we fund, the community we've built, the stories we tell. It lives in the way we treat our team, in the paychecks that actually support lives, not just bottom lines. It lives in how we show up for each other. Every Friday, I still write personal notes to our Lift Her grantees. Just a few lines. A reminder that someone sees them, believes in them, that they are not alone. Because I remember what it felt like to be alone. To be laughed at. To have people you once called friends reduce your dream to a punchline. I remember the burn of humiliation. The way shame sits heavy in your chest when the world points and says, who does she think she is? But here's the thing no one tells you. If you keep showing up, if you choose to honor your own voice even when it shakes, if you dare to keep building. Eventually the people who mocked you, they fade. And the ones who need you, they find you. Today, I stand in rooms I once thought were off limits. I speak at conferences, mentor women in their 60s starting over, and consult brands that finally figured out that kindness is good business. I've had CEOs ask how I scaled, and I always say the same thing. I listen to the people no one else listened to. And I didn't stop. There is no secret sauce. No shortcut. Just service. Consistency. Heart. And yes, sometimes a little fire. The best part? I'm no longer trying to prove anything to anyone. Not to Emma. Not to Jess. Not to the old college crowd that once rolled their eyes when I said the word livestream. They don't matter now. They never really did. What matters is the email I got last week from a woman named Connie in Kansas. She said, "I'm 67 years old. My kids are grown. My husband passed 2 years ago. I spent most of my life dressing for someone else, trying to shrink myself into sizes that never fit in roles that never felt true. But I wore your dress to my granddaughter's graduation last weekend. And for the first time in years, I felt like me. Thank you. That's it. That's the whole reason." They mocked my hustle. But now, I sign their paychecks. I mentor their nieces. I employ their mothers. I dress their wives. And I sleep at night knowing that I built something right. Something that matters. They thought the joke was on me. Turns out, I was just getting started. So if you're listening to this and you've been doubted, dismissed, overlooked, I want you to hear me loud and clear. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not too small. Your life, your voice, your story, it still matters. Let them laugh. And while they do, build anyway. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share this video with someone who needs a second wind.